If you've ever been laid off or you're afraid that a layoff may be coming in the future, welcome to Pink Slip Pavilion. Every week, we share a real story from a real person just like you and just like me who has gotten laid off and turned their pink slip into a power move. And this week, we have Andrew Bath telling his story from chaos to clarity.
Pink slips the stars, not the end.
Welcome to Pink Slip Pavilion, Andrew. We're so excited to have you here in the pavilion with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here. And thanks for the invitation.
Absolutely. And we have to start with the qualifying question like we always do. Have you ever gotten a pink slip?
I've actually been lucky enough to have two pink slips, although we don't call them pink slips here in Australia. And when I got them, I was in London, and I think they're P45s, and is what they call them in London. So yeah, I've been lucky enough to have two.
Ooh, lucky enough. I like that terminology. Let's dive into kind of where you were in life. And I don't know if you
Yeah,
want to talk about both or one. It's really your
yeah.
journey and your
I'll
story.
I'll mention both because they're probably both slightly different stages of life. So the first was when I was, what was I? I would have been about 28, 29. It was 2002 dot-com bubble burst, for those that were around then. And I was actually sponsored by my work. So my visa and my wife's visa depended on me having work in the UK. So probably caused a whole lot of stress in terms of from that side of things. And I think I had maybe 60 days to find something else, or I had to pack up, leave the country, pack everything up, like the house and what have you. And then the second time was 6 years later. I had just moved jobs. So I moved jobs back in, it was 2008, and it was probably about August. And I left a recruitment company, went to another recruitment company. Being in the country still depended on the work. However, I now have two children, so it's now three of us who are having to deal with that. And that was whether you want to call it GFC, whether you want to call it credit crunch, because a month after I moved, Lehman's collapsed and my world changed.
Wow, there's a lot going on there from a lot of different standpoints. And I know
Yep,
immigration isn't something that everybody tackles when they're going through a layoff, but it's a very
yep,
real reality for a lot of people.
yep.
So, what was your mindset as you were going through both of these experiences? Obviously, you've mentioned some of the stress, but where was your brain at? Where was your mind at?
There was a lot of probably initially it wasn't positive, particularly the first time. I think it's not a positive mindset. It's not a this I can reinvent myself, I can do this or that. It's very, have I let my wife down? What are we gonna do? What does this look like? And also the first time the business that I was working in had probably really helped me settle in. My first job in London, I'd worked there for 3 years. It was well, all my friends were, all my connections. So you feel probably a big sense of loss. And well, I certainly felt a big sense of loss and being alone. The second time, I didn't have the loss alone, but I hadn't been there long enough. But there's that let people down thing. There's a certainly the first time there was quite a few tears. And I think certainly for me, I found those first days when I wasn't working, um, the loss of routine, getting up, get dressed, get on the train, go to work, do what you do, see people, do stuff, come home. The loss of that routine was also pretty tough. So yeah, tears, um, question yourself. And the first one was probably my first career setback as well. So yeah, there was lots to deal with, lots of stuff.
I think something that you highlighted that I think is really important to just like say again is the pressure of providing.
Yeah,
Because I know a lot of different people feel that in different ways, but I know that that is an experience of I've got kids, I've got a spouse, I'm providing, and like there's a sense of lost identity in a layoff, but especially when you feel like people are depending on you, it's a
Yeah.
very real emotion.
And I'm really lucky. Like I've got a wife who's exceptionally successful in terms of her career and everything that she's done, which is awesome. But a lot of, I guess, for me, it was because the visa was tied to it, and you still want to be, whether it's providing or contributing. I think both are equally important. Yeah, it weighs on you.
Absolutely. So, how did your mindset evolve so that you could move through and not kind of live in that mindset indefinitely and not grow
Yeah.
through the experience?
I think for me, a lot of it was initially, and I'm not necessarily very good at this normally, is getting myself into a routine once I started. So for me, and anyone who knows me who watches this will know that I don't do the gym, but I actually made myself get up, go for a walk, go to the gym, and then had some stuff in place. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? How does this look? I get how I'm feeling now. How do I want to feel? Right, what do I put in place? So I think putting in place plans makes you feel like, okay, we're now looking at the future rather than the past. How do we make the most of this situation? And I can sit here and wallow in how I'm feeling and all the rest of it, or I can get out and I can try and make a change. And I need to be able to make a change. And I think the other thing that was important was the support of friends, definitely my wife and stuff.
I think that routine piece is important because one of the things that you said was that you were missing that routine pretty
Yep.
quickly. And I think
Yeah.
that's a very true thing for a lot of people. We get up, we know where we need to be, and we live that over and over and over.
Yep.
All of a sudden, when you have no routine, you feel like you have nowhere to be, it can be almost an accelerator of an identity crisis. So I love that you
Yeah.
put that stability back into your life.
Yeah. The stability was important. And the other thing I found was you go into an office, certainly if you're in a recruitment office, and particularly that office, it was fun. It was full of people my own age. It was full of my friends. We were having a good time as well as working. Everything was going in the right direction, and it didn't collapse because the business collapsed. It was a business that was sold by the parent. Um, so that was what sort of drove that. So I miss the company as well, like the people I miss. Whereas being at home, um, on your own and stuff, you've actually got to make sure you're doing stuff to stay busy. Otherwise, it is very easy to get in your own head, and harder to push away the negative thoughts if you haven't got some sort of routine and you're not doing stuff.
100%. And it's easier to disconnect too, because if you're not leaving
Yeah,
the house, you're not connecting with other people and having those
yeah,
interactions that you would
yeah,
have in the office or in gym classes or wherever around other human
yeah,
beings. You're very isolated, which can be really
yeah,
hard.
yeah. No, definitely.
So, so what blessings came out of this experience? Like obviously you're no longer there.
Yeah.
What would you have missed out on in your life had those two layoffs not happened?
I guess it's like that sliding door moment, they say, or it's like chaos theory. Nothing that happens afterwards in my life would have happened. It would have
True.
happened really, really differently. So I think that's something that's important to note. But it puts you a little bit more in control. So you get out of that, I'm doing this routine every day just because that's what I do. And when we look back, we probably only remember the good parts that we've now lost. There's actually stuff that probably was frustrating, annoying, or what have you. And I actually found it was the chance to reinvent myself. And what's happened is I've been able to do other stuff. I've got new experiences. I probably ended up in better jobs that had more responsibility. Um, More importantly, though, I was able to learn off a whole lot of different people, learn in different environments, and yeah, I got the chance to reinvent myself
That's huge. A lot of
and
people
make
never get that opportunity.
yeah, and make a whole lot more friends. Like the friends that you make in that sense of loss, and you've lost the friends, the colleagues, or what have you. You haven't lost them. You've just moved to a different stage, and if the friends and colleagues, they'll always be there. It's just you get to make another group and learn off a different group of people. So yeah, there were a whole lot of blessings.
I love that. And I always say with friends when you go through a layoff, because that's a really big thing. You see your coworkers every day,
Yep,
you have these friendships, but some of those friendships are due to proximity. And I think
yep,
sometimes we don't talk about the fact that when you are now in a new proximity, those people still exist, those friendships still exist, but you have to be more intentional about the way you connect with those people to
yeah,
maintain
100%.
those
Yeah,
relationships.
yeah. And you don't take them for granted as much. I
Yeah.
think that they end up. I'm not sure they mean more, but they have a greater sense of the time that you spend with them is more important, becomes more important rather than it's just part of the routine.
You have to put more effort in, which means
Yeah,
that, you get more from it because you're making a
yeah,
conscious effort
yeah,
versus I'm gonna show up today at the office and I know you're gonna be there whether I want you to be or
yeah,
not.
yeah, exactly. And like I actually, interestingly, I met a new person and I hired this person in the job after the first redundancy. And I did a presentation yesterday to a bunch of postgraduate people, and the person that was on the panel with me had hired the same person in Australia 20 years later. So actually, this person and I have now just reconnected 23 years after I hired her the first time.
That's wild. What are the odds, especially
Yeah.
across different countries? And
Yep.
that's crazy. So, with the wisdom you have now, if you could go back and you could talk to Andrew at both or one of those layoffs and give him
Yep.
advice, what would you want him to know?
This is your chance for a blank canvas. Um, you've got the chance to sit down, plan what you want out of your next job, take all the good bits, ask the right questions, and not worry about what comes from it. You're still going to have nerves. You're still going to be honest, you're still going to have a little bit of worry, but it's that chance to reinvent yourself, have a blank canvas. Mine was tied a little bit to the visa, so I had to stay in the same industry. But on both occasions, I whether it was luck or good management, I came out, I think, in a far better place than I was the time before, where I was before. So um, that's where I would go back and say, and you can make out of this what you want. But you can sit there and make it harder or go out and be positive and make the changes that you want to and be proactive with your plan.
Huge. And I think a lot of times people hear be positive and they think toxic positivity. You can have a
Yep.
positive mindset while still very much living in the reality of I have a visa hanging in the balance, financial concerns. All those things can be
Yep.
true, but you can still choose to be positive in how you approach the day.
I think it's really important and what I would say to people now, particularly through the emotional card deck work that I do, is you've got to acknowledge the undesired emotions and you've got to then understand, okay, those undesired emotions create those behaviors. So how can I mitigate against those so that I can get to these desired behaviors, these positive behaviors that I actually want? But you're going to have the undesired emotions. They're natural, and they're okay to feel. It's almost, but how can I embrace those and use those for a positive outcome? And to do that, I guess using the word you used just a little bit earlier, you've got to be intentional about it. You've got to be, that's actually what I'm going to do
Yeah.
moving forward. So you've got stuff, yeah, I ticked off. I did that today. I think that's the other thing with that routine was is having a few goals that you want to achieve through the day, like your to-do list, maybe at work, if you're a to-do list person. I'm not probably a to-do list person. I'm a little bit more chaotic. But I would actually, in those situations, I do write a to-do list because actually, cool, I have to do these things today and I can tick them off. And that helps me get through stuff. And I know even now when I'm feeling, if I'm negative, down, whatever, having a to-do list actually helps give me momentum. So I'm actually achieving stuff.
It's visual accomplishment. And then you
Yep.
get to actually like interact with your acknowledgement too, or not
Yeah.
an acknowledgement, your accomplishment.
Yep. Yep. 100%.
So, wrapping this up, if somebody's listening to this right now and they're afraid of a layoff coming because the world is wild, or they're walking through their layoff season right now, or maybe they're still harboring some of the emotion that comes with a layoff and they're still processing that, but
Yep.
they're in their next chapter already, what would you want them to hear and really leave this conversation with?
Yeah. I think the first thing is acknowledge those undesired feelings, those undesired emotions, and write them down. So well, you're almost I'm not sure you're parking them, but you're writing them down. What are they driving in terms of behaviors, and then almost flip it. Okay, how do I actually want to feel? So what are the feelings that I want, and then what can I do to make sure that I feel those things? Because that's the bit that can be in your control. Um, and then from there, it's okay. Let's work out a plan in terms of how we're gonna get there, and let's enact that plan with regards to what do I actually want to be doing? What is it that are the key things I want? And then work towards that. How am I going to get there? What am I going to do to be able to get there? I think that the trick is to acknowledge the undesired, but then work out a proactive plan. So, like you say, not positivity for the sake of being positive, but actually putting in place a plan that makes you feel that each day you're working towards something. And I think also the other thing is you're still going to have bad days. I think the trick is don't let a bad day become two bad days. My old team will have heard me say this. Don't let a bad day become two bad days. Don't let two bad days become a bad week. Right? Put a plan in place and put a circuit breaker in place that allows you to change that and get to where you want to. Just remember, it's a career. A career is a journey. It's not walking up a ladder. You haven't fallen off a ladder. You just happen to have got off at a different stop. You're about to get onto a different line, and who knows? Your perfect destination might be the stop on the different line.
Oh, I love that analogy, especially because we tend to believe our careers are very linear. So
Yeah,
that is all great advice. And I want to add to your don't let one bad day become two, and even say one bad hour doesn't have to be bad 24, right? There's
yeah,
little
exactly.
moments and little wins, like you've talked about writing down things you want to accomplish.
Yeah,
Bad things are still gonna, bad feelings, emotions are still gonna move through us, but it can be 30 minutes, it can be an hour, it could be 5 hours, it could be a whole day, but you don't have to let one day, one bad day become two, three, four, like you said.
yeah, 100%.
Huge. Well, thank you so
Brilliant.
much, Andrew. Great
No,
advice.
thank you.
Thank you for sharing your story and being willing to be vulnerable and be honest about your journey because I know it will help other people going through their layoff seasons. And I hope that we'll see you again in the future.
Certainly sounds good. Actually, there is one other thing. Just remember, there is a large percentage of the population who've been in the same position. So you're actually not as alone as I think you think in that
Absolutely.
particular moment. So that'd probably be something I would leave on is because it's not a nice feeling alone. So there's other people out there who've been there and made their lives really successful afterwards.
Incredible addition. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Quite all right. Thank you.
Well, Andrew is certainly right. You are not alone, and that is part of the reason that Pink Slip Pavilion is here. I want you to see how normal it is to experience a layoff in your career journey And I want you to see and be inspired by people that have made all kinds of choices coming out of this season. The thing that every single person in this pavilion has in common is that they chose to grow through a challenging time instead of getting stuck in it. And so that the goal with this channel, this podcast is for you to be able to see yourself in one of these stories and know that a layoff is not the end. It is simply the beginning of something new and exciting, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment. If you want to connect with Andrew, all his contact information will be in the description of this episode. And please come back next week and every Wednesday. We will be in the pavilion with more stories to inspire you, to give you hope, to make you feel connected, and to reframe the layoff experience. I'll see you next week. And if you're not subscribed yet, you already know, make sure you hit that subscribe button and we'll see you then.
This pink slips